Hey, welcome to Horns Up. This time, post coronavirus edition. Actually, not post, still during coronavirus edition, lockdown edition.
Lockdown edition.
How are you doing,
Yeah,
Peter?
doing all right. Still have some hair left on my head, not pulling it out as yet.
All
but
right. And on this one, we're joined by none other than Matt Bacon, all the way
Hey,
from
hey,
Philadelphia. How's it going, Matt?
I'm good, enjoying the lockdown. Also, not trying to pull the hair out of my head, but that's what the apocalypse is, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how this lined up, but it lined up fantastically because today on Horns Up, we're doing a versus, and I don't know if it's because we're in lockdown, but it just feels so right. We're doing a versus with Slayer's Rain and Blood, which is taking on Slayer's Seasons in the Abyss. Are you guys huge Slayer fans? I am.
Obviously, I've seen it a lot of times. I
Yeah.
think that Rain and Blood is probably the best metal record ever. So,
Spoiler.
it's hard to not get stoked when you're listening to that record.
Yeah,
True.
completely true. So, Matt, before we begin, do you remember your first ever exposure to Slayer? What was that like?
I remember. Okay, so this is. I was actually talking about this to someone the other day. So when I was in middle school, my best friend Asher was the other guy really in the music, right?
Okay.
And he was and we were both raised in very Christian homes. And at one point, I was starting to get into heavier music, and he was getting into the Arcade Fire and whatever the fuck. And I remember him being like, "Oh, I'm glad I don't listen to that Slayer band who with the guys who claim to be Catholic but wrote a record called God Hates Us All." And I was like, God Hates Us All? That sounds like a record I want to listen to. So I did, and I was like, oh, okay, this is for me. You know what I mean?
So God Hates Us All was your first ever Slayer record?
I mean, I think it was a song Disciple probably, and then I probably listened to Raining Blood first. As a full Slayer record. It's a little complicated because when I was getting into music, I was getting into music via these weird kind of illegal streaming platforms where they wouldn't really have the album uploaded. They just have a bunch of songs, so I just listened to whatever songs I could find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Completely know what you mean.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Probably Rain and Blood was probably my first Slayer record, but the idea that they had a song with the lyric "God Hates Us All" was what really caught my attention as an 11-year-old.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What about you, Peter?
I mean, strangely enough, even though we live in two different parts of the world, it was kind of the same because I think that was the time I was getting into metal. Animation, I keep talking about it on our previous episodes, but I got into new metal and stuff like that, and I think uh, that's around the time God Hates Us All was released. And again, growing up in a very conservative Catholic household, you can't bring in a CD or a cassette with crosses all over it and without getting too much attention or unwanted attention to it. But yeah, I still remember listening to Disciple, and for the longest time thinking that the track was called God Hates Us All because he keeps singing that in the track. But yeah, I think that was my first exposure to Slayer, but I think I've probably heard more bands cover Rain and Blood and tracks like that, cover bands I mean, Indian bands cover that, then I've never actually seen Slayer live. So I've probably seen more bands play that song.
Yeah, it is one of the most covered songs here in India. Um, well, for me, actually, it's a slightly different story. I'm not a Catholic, so that it didn't have that kind of oh my God, I'm doing something evil kind of a thing for me at all. Instead, my exposure to Slayer was because Hell Awaits was the cheapest CD that I could buy at a record store. And yeah, I was getting into metal, and that album cover just looks so metal. And obviously, I'd heard about the notoriety of Slayer as such, so I was like, okay, cool, let me give this a shot, since it basically meant that I could pick up two records instead of one. So I ended up buying it, and yeah, my world was never the same again. Slayer changed me. I couldn't believe music could be that fast, that loud, that abrasive, that awesome.
Yeah,
And
But
the
and I
intro
think that
was so fucked up too, like with the like proto death growl coming in.
yeah.
It's yeah. Like I remember hearing that and being like, oh shit, and like I didn't really like get that freaked out until I heard like Meat Hook Sodomy a few months later, probably.
But
all
one of the
right,
things I must mention about a band like Slayer, that despite all that was going around, I mean, the notoriety that they had, you actually could get their music in India. And like you'd actually go to like a Planetime, which was a music store, and find their music. So, I mean, I'm glad that was available to us back then.
yeah,
That's awesome.
but still, yeah. I still think Christ Illusion was banned here too, wasn't it?
They had the cover. I still remember that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, we're not here to talk about those albums. We're here to talk about Rain and Blood and Seasons in the Abyss. So let me just slightly preview both of these albums for you guys before we get into it. Rain and Blood is the third studio album by American thrash metal band Slayer. It was released on October 7th, 1986 by Def Jam Recordings. 10 songs. Overall, the album clocks in at a mere 28 minutes, 58 seconds. That's under 29 minutes. It's probably for me the perfect length for an album of this sort. Seasons in the
Cool.
Abyss, on the other hand, is the fifth studio album by Slayer. It's released on October 9th, 1990 by Def American Records. 10 songs again, but this time clocking in at almost double at 42 minutes 27 seconds. So, gentlemen, are you guys ready to do this? Shall we begin verses?
Sure,
Yes.
let's do it.
Okay, but before we begin verses, I think it warrants that we do a Slayer growl to start things off. Okay, three, two, one.
Slayer.
Slayer. Alrighty. Track number one. It's Angel of Death versus War Ensemble. Peter, you want to go first?
I don't think there's going to be much of a comparison here for me. But one of the things I just want to highlight, because I know both of you are far bigger Slayer fans than me, the start, the high pitched shriek, which is the start of Angel of Death. I mean, to me, when I was listening to it all over again, it's like a call to war. Like, it's just like, guys, you think you know what's coming, get set. And that is one of the things I really love about that track, man. And again, it's with most of the tracks, I'm going to keep repeating myself on Rain and Blood. The riffs are so iconic, man. I mean, like, there's nobody who's into metal who has never heard even one of these tracks or one of these riffs ever. And that just goes to say how great a band like Slayer is. So, I mean, I'm talking so much about Angel of Death, so it's pretty obvious that that's my pick. Just surely, I mean, just based on like that speed and primal aggression that the track has, and it's a perfect opener, if I may.
All right. What about you, Matt? Angel of Death versus War Ensemble. Which one did you pick?
I think it's interesting because I think that War Ensemble is like actually probably the second strongest Slayer opening track. You know what I mean? Like, I do think that like the lyrics on that one are objectively stronger. The lyrics are objectively stronger. I don't know. It's a good fucking song from them. It's one of my favorite Slayer songs, actually. But like, how do you even like the drum break on Angel of Death?
Yeah.
Like right when you think it's over, and then he goes into that just double bass like you've never heard before, and then just right back into it, and then the bridge on Angel of Death, like still like to talk about it right now gives me goosebumps, just because it's like such like you hear it for the first time when you're a kid and you're like, that's fucking evil. You know what I mean? And like it's hard not to be charmed by that. You know what I mean? Like it's like you hear it and you're just like, yeah. I'm gonna die. And and that was kind of a feeling I've had several times over the years seeing Slayer, was just a sense of like, oh, I'm gonna die. And I think it really perfectly encapsulates that, if that makes any sort of sense. Like,
yeah, it does. So it's clear that you're going with Angel of Death too.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, no surprises. I'm going with Angel of Death too because it's just so iconic. I think it is the song that defines Slayer. It's the perfect Slayer song. And yes, even though War Ensemble is a great song, it's not that iconic. So yeah, Angel of Death for me too. Cool. So we start off with a clean sweep for Raining in Blood. Next up, track number 2, Piece by Piece versus Blood Red. Matt, you want to take this one?
I have a song, like, I just love the part in Piece by Piece where, like, at the very end where it goes, piece by piece. And that always, like, freaks me out.
Yeah, completely.
Like, Blood Red is okay, but it's also kind of like a precursor of, like, 90s Slayer, which is, like, it's got its moments, but it's not really, like, a stunner, Whereas Piece by Piece just has this, like, in the riff, you can, like, hear someone getting chopped up. So, I don't know. I'm about that life.
Peter, what about you?
For me, when I was going through the lyrics of Piece by Piece, if you think about it, wouldn't be out of place on, say, a Cannibal Corpse album or any death metal album, right? I mean, this is the this is the kind of music that inspired all these death metal acts that came later. But yeah, I mean, it's like what Matt said. When you go through it, piece by piece is way like, and it's just, again, I'm coming back, just so aggressive, and you just want to, like, I don't know, break stuff or just get really aggressive listening to this kind of thing. And that's where, Blood Red kind of, you see a difference in the tracks. So no surprise, it's Piece by Piece for me.
Okay. This one's weird for me because I'm actually going to go with Blood Red. Yes, it is not as intense as Piece by Piece, but Blood Red to me feels like a completed song. Like it just feels whole. Piece by Piece feels like they had this long song, but then they only decided to keep the intense part of it. I don't know why.
No, I definitely see what you're saying. Like, Piece by Piece is definitely a short one.
Yeah. So only for that reason, I'll go with Blood Red. Cool.
Okay.
All right. So at least Seasons in the Abyss rakes up its first point, which leads me to track number 3, Necrophobic versus Spirit in Black. Let me start this one off. I love the harmonic guitar solo section in Spirit in Black. That to me is the highlight of that song.
Yeah. That's what I wrote.
I love that part. But overall, for this one, between the two, it's Necrophobic for me. It's hardcore punk up to the max. I love the chaotic start of the song. And apart from the small bridge just before the solo, this song never lets up. It's short and it's brutally sweet. And this is what Piece by Piece should have been for me. But yeah, Necrophobic, just the better track. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I do like kind of, because like the Spirit in Black thing is like one of the few moments in Slayer's discography where you really hear the Thin Lizzy influence kind of shine through, which is interesting to me. But yeah, again, like, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is another one of those tracks where just the like the chunkiness of the lyrics, the way he sings, you can't not love it, where he says, necrophobic, can't control the paranoia, scared to die.
Yeah.
You're just like, ugh. So for me, it just has to be. It just has to be that because it's just so memorable. You know what I mean?
Yep, completely. What about you, Peter?
I'm in agreement with both of you, man. I mean, like just the guitar work on this track, uh, so brilliant. I mean, like of course, not taking away from Spirit in Black, like the solo that Jeff Hanneman plays halfway through. Like for me, it was like close to each other, but then when I looked at it, just looking back and the kind of music I mainly listen to, definitely I'm going for Necrophobic.
All right, all right. So it seems to be a complete swarm show by Rain at the moment. But let's see how it goes. Because next up, track number 4 here is Altar of Sacrifice versus Expendable Youth. Peter, your take.
Altar of Sacrifice by far, man. I mean, just the frantic vocal delivery of Tom Araya. Again, at this point, it's the kind of speed metal, if I may use that, riffs, which kind of give it an upper edge over Expendable Youth. So, yeah, man, that's my pick, Altar of Sacrifice.
Okay, I'm going to step in here and say that the highlight of Altar of Sacrifice has to be the lyric "Enter to the realm of Satan," and that entire
Yeah.
sentence that follows it. But Expendable Youth can counter that lyric with the lovely "Death is the only solution," and then the solo section, which is still a bit sonically different than from what we generally see the VV Slayer kind of stuff. It feels like I've heard Altar of Sacrifice before on Hell Awaits, so which is why I'm going to give it to Expendable Youth.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really fair point, and it's really like, yeah, this is when I was actually looking at and was like, huh, fuck, I don't know what I'm gonna say because because I do love that Enter to the Realm of Satan, but simultaneously, like, Expendable Youth is objectively one of the strongest songs on Seasons in the Abyss. I don't know, like, it's a tricky one. I feel like I have to go with Expendable Youth on this one.
Woohoo!
Wow. Okay. First track on the way to Seasons in the Abyss.
Yep, yep. Seasons in the Abyss has a better track number 4, which leads us to track number 5. It's Jesus Saves versus Dead Skin Mask. Matt, just go for it.
It's like a top 5 Slayer song, in my opinion. It's also secretly a ripoff of Kiss's God of Thunder. Just saying. Like trapped in a closet, like the Let Me Out. Like I remember hearing that song for the first time, being like, "Holy shit, that's fucked up." Jesus Saves is cool, and it's intense and it's almost a hardcore song, and I do love it for that. But I feel like Dead Skin Mask is just like, it's just skin crawling,
Yeah. I think that skin crawling is probably the best word to define Dead Skin Mask, or the best adjective for it. I mean, Jesus Saves starts out with a banger of a groove, but then after the groove, it kind of goes back to very meat and potato Slayer. But Dead Skin Mask, on the other hand, it's got that lovely intro. That line, "I promise I won't keep you for long, I'll keep you forever." That just, oh my God, that literally just sends a chill up your spine. The rest of the song is scary as fuck, and those samples in the end are just the cherry on the cake for me. It's the most haunting Slayer song, period. So yeah, for me, it's Dead Skin Mask too.
Do you guys want to guess what my pick is?
If it's not Dead Skin Mask, you're a poser.
But yeah, man, I mean, you talked about the spoken word part in the opening verse, right? Like when I was listening to it, it sends literally chills down your spine. And like I was reading the lyrics, and it is quite, I mean, it's based on the serial killer Ed Gein. And despite knowing all of that, when Tom Araya sings Dance with the Dead in my dreams, listen to their hallowed screams. You just want to sing along. Like it's just one of those things. And like Jesus Saves, like you said, it has that chugga chugga part, which, if you think about it, when the compared to the previous tracks, it's kind of slower in a way. But then I don't know where they kind of the second half of this track, what happened. But yeah, again, Seasons in the Abyss gets a second pick. My pick is, of course, Dead Skin Mask.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. Feels like maybe the tables are turning. We'll see as we step into track number 6, side Bs officially of both the records now. First up here is Criminally Insane versus Hallowed Point. Matt, your thoughts?
I definitely would go with Criminally Insane. Like, I think that Hallowed Point isn't, one of the more memorable songs from the Seasons in the Abyss record. I think Criminally Insane, again, it just has the chunkiness, kind of like Necrophobic a little bit. The way he says Criminally Insane, you can almost hear how that ends up inspiring Carcass a few years later on Recapitrefaction. And, you can hear that a little bit more. So neither are really top tier tracks from either of those records, but I do think that Criminally Insane is the better song.
All right, Peter?
I'm going for Hallowed Point. I mean, it was close for me, but when I was listening to them, Hallowed Point is kind of one of the few tracks which on this album kind of sound like Rain in Blood. So yeah, I'm going for Hallowed Point, man.
Okay. All right. So at this point in the record, Hallowed Point just feels like a cookie cutter Slayer song. But Criminally Insane, who doesn't love that drum intro?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's a great track to blare out on loudspeakers. And this is like a PSA, but you guys should try it the next time you're ever subject to doing a sound check at a show, if those ever happen again in the future at time. But yeah, it's a fantastic intro, and I love the outro too. Criminally Insane is the better track. I think it's also because Criminally Insane was remixed at some point, right? I think it's available on the bonus content or something of that sort of this record. And yeah, clear winner for me here, Criminally Insane. Cool. All right. So that being said, let's move on to track number 7. It's time for Reborn versus Skeletons of Society. Peter, you start.
Okay, so you can tell by now that I'm a fan of more the aggressive side of Slayer compared to the mid-tempo kind of track. So it's Reborn for me.
Okay. Matt, anything to add?
I think that Skeletons of Society is one of the stronger tracks on Seasons in the Abyss. I like the chorus there. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I just find it to be. It's just a rager, man. Like, I have a hard time not loving that song, so I'm definitely a Skeletons of Society guy.
Ooh, okay. So that means I'm the decider. I'm actually going to answer this in the form of a question, which is a bit of a dig here, but I don't know why Skeletons of Society is considered to be one of the most recognizable Slayer songs. To me, it's like it's a weak song, but I guess it's something the band plays a lot and it's known a lot because it's got a very singable chorus, and I think the band really plays it a lot because it's almost like a rest stop in the middle of a set. It gives them something easy to play, but the song itself is just way too long. Now, Reborn, on the other hand, it doesn't really add anything new to Slayer either, but it's shorter, it's crisper, it's stronger, and that's why for me it still scores over Skeletons of Society. So that's 2 points to Reborn and 1 point to Skeletons of Society. Sorry, Matt.
All right.
Okay, getting into the last 3 tracks. This is track number 8. It's Epidemic versus Temptation. Okay, let me start off this one here. This one again, it feels like a battle of the lightweights, but Temptation just ekes out the win for me because of the vocals and how they were recorded and their entire story of Araya basically tracking the vocals twice, and and I'm guessing Slayer just I don't know the actual truth, but it seems to me like they were like, oh my god, just put both of them together at the same time. It's okay. Yeah, just because of that gimmick, I'll give Temptation a vote. What about you, Matt?
I didn't realize that about the vocals. That's kind of interesting. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, they're both kind of like the forgettable songs on their respective records. I don't think anyone is really singing either of those albums. Either of those, like, no one's like living and dying as like "Epidemic" is the best song on Rain and Blood.
Yeah.
That being said, you know what? I'll go with Temptation too, just because I think you're right. The production value is higher. It is a little bit more worth spending your time with.
Yes, since you guys kind of said most of it, I'm just going to add, the dual vocals, of course. Something I read was apparently the reason why they don't play it live is because Kerry King said he can't play and sing the backing vocals to it. But for me, like even the chorus, play with your insanity, shatter your reality, pulsing in your blood. I mean, of course, man, Temptation. I'm going for that.
Okay, so a clean sweep for Rain and Blood here. Moving on to the last two tracks. This is track number 9. It's Post Mortem versus Born of Fire. Matt, you want to take this one?
Born of Fire fucking kills. And just that like Born of Fire. It's just like, ugh. And like it's also funny to me because it's the exact same shtick that they do in It's the exact same shtick that they do in More Ensemble, but it's just such a good idea. They just did it again at the end of the album, and it worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're going with Born of Fire?
Yeah, totally.
All right, cool. Peter?
I think that, if I can just add, I think that the best Slayer songs are the songs that really evoke the sense of being in hell. And that song does that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter?
I mean, for me, both these tracks are like really dark when you get down to the lyrics. I mean, like for Postmortem in like verse 3, it's like, come and die with me forever, shared insanity. Do you want to die? I mean, you just hear those tracks and, sometimes you just want to sing along to it.
I'm sorry for cutting you off. That has to be the best poetic interpretation of Postmortem I've ever heard.
Sorry.
No, just the way you read the lyrics. I was imagining somebody on stage, maybe at a poetry competition or something of that sort, reciting.
Now you've put that image in my head. I mean, but for me, just like Matt said, it's Born of Fire. I mean, it's balls out. You've got great solos from both Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman. I mean, completely edges Postmortem over. So yeah, one more vote to Born of Fire.
Okay, so I'm going to be the contrarian here, and that's not actually to do with the songs itself. I mean, objectively speaking, yes, Born of Fire is a better song, but I'm going to go subjective here because Postmortem has more to do for me with what the song represents and is known for rather than the song itself. And which is why I'm giving it to Postmortem, and you all know why.
Yes, I know what's coming next. So let's just dive straight into it. Matt,
Yep.
you have to end it up for us.
Yep, it's time for Raining Blood versus Seasons in the Abyss.
I mean, yeah, like, is this even a contest? Like, well, like Raining Blood is such a good song that even the chug part is like the fucking sickest chug part you've ever heard in your life. And then like the bridge with the banana, you're just like, yeah, like it's I don't know. Yeah, I have this really great memory of seeing Slayer last summer with my friend Runa from Midgardsblut, and we were hanging out, and I just remember it being like we were like watching Raining Blood and like just freaking out with her, just like even though we both seen Slayer a bunch of times, we were just like, this is sick. You know what I mean? Like every time you see it, you're just like a 15-year-old again.
Oh, absolutely. I attest to that fact. I mean, I've seen Slayer only once when they came to India, and oh my God, Raining Blood was the highlight of the set for me too. And I must ask you this, Matt. All the times you've seen Slayer, have they actually made it rain blood during Raining Blood?
I mean, yeah, like I've seen Slayer like both from the luxury box at Madison Square Garden to like the pit to like being alone in the photo pit 3 feet from Tom Araya. And like, I don't know, every time it's just, I have this really great memory of seeing Slayer when I was 18, and it was at this festival in Europe. And I just remember the circle pit kicking up like a 50-foot cloud of dust. And like, I wasn't even in the circle pit, but I was just spitting brown. Because there was just that much, you know what I mean? There's that much dust. It was insane. That's my cat agreeing. So
yeah, definitely.
You can't not love that song.
Peter?
The only thing I'm gonna add is what I said earlier. I mean, there are certain bands in India who kind of made their reputation playing covers of Slayer and playing this song, and the moment you heard the opening riff itself, you have like everyone going nuts, like every person losing their shit and singing along. And yeah, I mean, for a lot of them, their dream came true when Slayer came down to India. So finally seeing the band in the flesh. So no surprises, man. I mean, just and unfortunately, like even though like Seasons in the Abyss, you have like that great opening part and things like that. But then when you're putting it pitted against each other, Raining Blood for sure, man. Raining Blood.
Yeah, I'll just add here, like, and it's only because you mentioned that opening part of the song. In jam rooms to this day, if anybody is a metalhead, I guarantee you the drummer will try and do that intro, and everybody will play the first riff and absolutely lose their shit when it comes to playing the second riff of that song. And of course, I'm talking Raining.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. The second riff, if you find a guitar player who can play that second riff properly, that's when you know you got a good guitar player with you. Because that's a tough riff. Anyways, so with that, we end the music part of this. Let's quickly talk about artwork. Between the two albums, Matt, which artwork do you prefer and why?
So I actually pulled up the artwork for this part because I was like, which one do I prefer? I feel like I prefer the Rain in Blood art just because there's just so much going on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like some art that you can really like sink your teeth into. There's just a lot there visually. You know what I mean? So that's really what captures my imagination about it, is that it's just like like I to this day will like pick up that record and just like look at it and notice a detail I hadn't seen before. It's like Hieronymus Bosch type stuff, who I've always loved. Even since I was a kid before I knew about Slayer. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that.
Okay, Peter.
I'm going for the same, man. I mean, like, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but then when you hear all about Slayer and then you see that artwork, it fits exactly. Like you're like, oh my god, this is the kind of album I'm going to pick up just to piss off my parents or tell everyone that what I'm metalhead, and it's so iconic. I mean, everyone kind of knows it. Everyone's worn bootleg T-shirts for it here in India and stuff like that. So yeah, man, for me it's Rain in Blood.
Okay. I'm actually going to go with Seasons in the Abyss. And the reason behind that is okay, so for me, the most memorable and the Slayer artwork that I really like is actually Hell Awaits. I love that. And compared to that, Rain and Blood, like there's just so much going on in it that I don't see it. Like, how many Rain and Blood t-shirts have you actually seen? Is my metric versus how many Seasons in the Abyss t-shirts have you seen? You kind of see the iconic skull over there itself, and I
Yeah,
think that's more closely associated with Slayer than any of the artwork on Rain and Blood as such. Because when you see Goat Head, etc., that is more associated with Hell Awaits. It's not associated with Rain and Blood. So I'm gonna go with Seasons in the Abyss for this one on album artwork. Am I allowed to say that?
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it's okay to be wrong, buddy.
Yeah, I was waiting for that some kind of sarcasm there. Okay, which then leaves us with talking about the entire album and their legacies. Matt, why don't you paint this up for us?
So I think, you know, Hell Awaits sort of kicks off this trilogy for the band. Sort of their three best records. They're like, broadly speaking, I think most people would agree that Hell Awaits, Rain and Blood, and South of Heaven are like sort of like the Slayer records. I feel like Seasons in the Abyss is sort of, for a while, the last truly great Slayer record. Like nobody's really like stoked on Divine Intervention, Undisputed Attitude, and like whatever. Like no one's really stoked on any other '90s output, except that it really only gets good again around God Hates Us All, right? So like that's kind of my 2 cents. Is like the first three Slayer records are. The second through fourth Slayer records are truly, truly phenomenal. And especially when you consider that they put out those three records in the space of 3 years. Season in the Abyss is an all-time metal classic, but doesn't quite have that cultural cash for me that that Rain and Blood does. I mean, it's the metal record.
Okay, Peter.
I'm going to go for the same, man. I mean, I'm not, again, like I said earlier, I'm not the as big Slayer fans as both of you, but for me, just listening to Rain in Blood, man. I mean, it's like even a not so, how would I put this? Even someone like me who's not that huge a fan knows those tracks and has like lost his shit listening to them. So just for that reason, I'm going with Rain in Blood.
Okay. Hmm. All right. Okay. Now wait. I'm just going to try and extend this a little bit. Seasons in the Abyss has been described as the perfect mix between the two styles of Slayer. It marries the speed as well as the slowy, groovy kind of a part, which is showcased on both Rain and Blood and South of Heaven, respectively. Um, Having said that, yeah, of course, this is going to be Rain and Blood seasons. South, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Uh,
We get it. We get it.
I'm not gonna do that again because no matter how much is written about Seasons in the Abyss or the fact that it has War Ensemble, which has earned Slayer its heaviest airplay as a music video of all time because I think that was the first ever proper music video they ever did. Yes, it received a lot of positive reviews, etc. It's been ranked 31st on Rolling Stone's 100 greatest metal albums of all time. But then you start talking about Rain in Blood, and Rolling Stone ranked it at number 6 on that same list. So yeah, I think that is Rain in Blood is Slayer's peak album, even though I still like Hell Awaits more.
I mean,
But
let's just to put this discussion a little further. I'm pointing this primarily to both of you. If you had to tell someone which Slayer, I mean, you have to introduce Slayer to someone, which album would you give them? And it kind of boils down to that for me.
Yeah, it's like your face is going to get ripped off. You're going to think you're going to die. Get hype.
yeah, I'd give them Rain and Blood too. But then I'd tell them, hey, check out Hell Awaits. That's really
we already know the next episode we're gonna do.
No, can't be done on verses, man. They don't have. I really wanted to do that, but they don't have similar song numbers on them. Yeah, tracks on. Yeah. All right. So that was verses.
Moment of truth. Wow.
Moment of truth. We really. I think we all kind of know that Rain in Blood is a clear winner here. Rain in Blood overall has 25 points to Seasons in the Abyss, which has only 11. Wow, a dominant victory.
Yeah.
The first ever versus that we've done, which has a clear-cut dominant victory. So, Matt, let me just paint you a picture of the previous versus episodes we did. We did Iron Maiden's Power Slave versus Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Okay.
Which one would you pick on that overall?
I'm definitely a Seventh Son guy.
Okay, cool. And the next one we did was Master of Puppets versus Ride the Lightning.
Well, Master of Puppets probably, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. You take that one too. But over there for both those versus episodes, it was literally like maybe a point or a couple of points difference. Yeah, it was neck to neck. But this one is the first one that we have such a clear dominant winner. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
it was very fun. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. So Matt, here's your space. You want to give out some shout outs or something of that sort? Feel free.
I mean, yeah, just if you like Indian thrash metal, check out my friends in Chaos. They're really good. Otherwise, if you check out my Instagram at MattBacon666, we have a lot of band advice videos. Follow me on Twitter to hear me say stupid shit, get in fights with Peter about whatever the fuck. Again, just at MattBacon666, and check out my company, Dropout Media. I'm offering free 15-minute consultations to bands during the coronavirus crisis. So if you have any questions about growing your band, now is the time to hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Peter. And Matt. I hope you have a good rest of the lockdown.
Yeah,
you too. Take care. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Horns up.
Horns up, man.
Horns up always.